and welcome to our Namaste 2020. It's probably the best, most yogi thing I could come up with outside of like using curse words at 2020 is kind of how I felt some days, like goodbye, good riddance. And I found myself really getting negative and like kind of getting in this swamp of like, man, this year sucked. Like this was awful. All the hurdles and all of just everything. And it's easy to go down that path for many of us. So it took some journaling, it took some meditating, and just planning for this class really helped me kind of refocus and kind of turn that negative energy into kind of considering and looking at things that we did accomplish and the wins of the year. So it was very therapeutic, I would say, to kind of come up with this class, and the energy and intention I'm hoping that we can find is a lot along the lines, just really being aware and enjoying the things that we can do. You know, like joining each other through Zoom, staying connected that way. Just everything we've learned about each other and that compassion that people see in each other and for each other this year. Kind of stepping away from those thoughts of like, oh, like those people don't care about others or what have you, as we see a lot of that on social media. Just really looking around and seeing the vast majority of people just offering compassion and caring, and modifying their own lives in many ways to give some space for others and protect others. So just really, whether you wore a mask out in public or whether you started to limit activities, did anything differently this year, just know that your heart is in the right place and just having some kindness and compassion. So the reward for that is just finding that ease throughout your practice today, and maybe looking instead of at a resolution and setting ourselves up for what I ultimately think are these failures that will come in 2021 of like, okay, I want to start running. Or instead of doing things that year after year are kind of fall off the wagon on, look at what we can do. So I'm going to call that like making or setting a drishti. And it kind of coincides with our drishti tree here. So maybe if you're one of those people like, I'm going to wake up early every day, like a half hour earlier. And instead of setting that resolution, set this resolution or drishti rather of finding the joy of that time in the morning, whether it's a little bit more peace to start your day with, a little bit more quiet. What is it about that half hour earlier? What is it about running that you accomplish? And what's that ultimate goal? So rather than setting those tasks ahead of us, looking to attach maybe a little emotion to it and a broader spectrum of like, I just want to feel better. I want to be more active. And it doesn't have to be running or what have you, but maybe you can set yourself up for success when we broaden those thoughts, setting like, instead of this broad or this one goal, it's like, I'm going to run every day or I'm going to do yoga every day. Like just maybe work on like, I'm going to unclench my jaw more when I practice yoga or anything of the sort. So just take a moment. Let's rest our hands on our knees, sit up nice and tall, kind of enjoy that length in our spine. Thinking about the crown of our heads and how they kind of project out into the universe at all angles, all directions. Close your eyes. And take a moment to look back at your morning. And what is it about this morning that you can find joy in or success in? Even if it was just the taste of coffee. Just looking back, and then maybe whatever that is, setting this drishti into 2021, like every day finding joy in that one thing. Each and every day. It could be just the carpet or the floor underneath your feet as you were getting out of bed. Just finding that appreciation. All right, and carrying that into our practice. We're going to move slowly and look for ways in our own practice, not to mirror really what I'm doing as an instructor, but to try to cue things in such a way like, okay, we're looking to open up a shoulder here. So how can you move and what can you do in your body that kind of adds value to that or makes it feel good for you? All right, let's keep our eyes closed for just a couple more moments. Sensing those inhales and exhales and the naturalness of our breath. And if it feels good for you to be a bit more intentional with those inhales and exhales in and out your nose, you can add that into your practice or come to it at any point during today's class. Maybe trying to focus too much on your breath adds stress into your body, and it's not what you need today. So having that free will to make those adjustments and take cues as I give them or not. You can just leave them by the side of your mat. All right, feel that softness in your face and some ease. Again, just feeling this appreciation for taking time to be on your mat and learn about tension in our bodies and how so many people go about their days unaware of the stress that they feel and how you work to find that ease and calmness in your body through our yoga practice. All right, let's place fingertips on the sides down on our mats. I'm gonna leave our right hand down and take left hand out and up overhead. Just find a side stretch so you feel length in that left side body. And I enjoy leaving my elbows straight here, finding a little deeper stretch, even wiggling fingers, maybe looking underneath the bicep or adjusting that gaze down to the floor. Explore that left side of your body all the way into your hip. See how you can move to feel your best. All right, we're going to put that left hand down towards the right side as well. And just finding a little bit deeper twist, but also lengthening out the crown of our head here. So we're trying to root down into both sit bones. Finding this twist. Maybe that left hand is on your knee rather than the floor if that feels better. And I want you to find just this softness in your face again. Maybe wiggling your toes. Kind of take your mind off of Any stress in your body? Tuck chin towards your chest and then gaze upward. Let's come back to center. Bring those fingertips along either side of you on the floor. When you're ready, right hand reaches up overhead. Again, waking up that side body. Wiggling fingers or straightening that elbow to deepen the stretch. And also gazing up or down, finding some movement here. Checking in maybe with your belly, and is it holding tension at all? Can it just relax? Now, I can't speak to men, but I know a lot of women, we walk around trying to hold our guts in a little bit some days or most days. So just knowing in your practice here to find some softness in your belly so that your breath can kind of flow in and out. Bring the right hand down towards that left side for a deeper twist. Again, root both sit bones down towards the mat. You're going to tuck your chin in towards your chest. And then gaze upward. And come back to center. This time, rest hands on both of your knees, sitting up nice and tall. Maybe creating a little bit more length in your spine than you could find when we were just sitting here initially. And let's move on to our hands and knees. So from hands and knees, I want you just to tuck your toes underneath and send hips back towards your heels. And come forward. I'm going to do that a couple times, just stretching into the bottoms of our feet, waking them up. Also notice as you leave your hands planted, your wrists are starting to warm as well. So maybe bring shoulders out in front of those wrists slightly. And then keeping with the motions kind of sitting back towards your heels, but we can add some circular movement instead. Kind of rounding forward and back one direction. And then after 3 or 4 circles, we're going to go back the other direction. And then pause at center. So this morning we're going to tent our fingers and stay on our fingerprints rather than the palms of our hands. So it's kind of like those suction cup palms here. And then keep your toes tucked as well. And we're going to move through our cat-cows this way. So inhale, drop belly, gaze up. Really press fingers into the mat, toes into the mat as you round into a cat stretch. Tuck chin into chest. Move through about 4 more cycles of these, just taking your time, inhaling and dropping that belly, letting all that tension go. And then exhaling, rounding spine, like curving the spine the opposite direction. Adding any additional movements here, kind of playing with thumb placement as well, like what feels better on your thumb so it's not holding too much pressure. All right, come back to center, bring palms down to the mat, untuck your toes, and just tap your feet on the ground. Then take your right hand, we're gonna flip it over so the back of your hand is on the mat, fingers point towards you. Taking a stretch through your forearm, spread fingers nice and wide. And elbows can be bent or straight here. Just know we're looking for a forearm stretch. And any movement here that feels good. place that hand back down on the mat and do the same with the left side. Again, spreading fingers nice and wide. And then bringing palms back to the mat. So we're going to walk our hands forward, leave hips up over knees and walk hands forward into puppy pose. And you can come down to just your elbows if that feels better in your shoulders. But try to rest that forehead on the mat. And if it doesn't quite touch the mat, feel free to grab a block, place it underneath your forehead so that you can get some pressure on that third eye area. So likewise, if your forehead is on the mat, but then it's not that third eye area, that space kind of right between and above the center of your eyebrows. If that doesn't quite connect with the earth, consider grabbing a block. We're going to take about 30 seconds here, and I want you to make this pose a little bit easier in your body so that it's not creating tension. So belly is soft again. As you inhale and exhale, you can feel that breath there. Your jaw is free of tension. Again, when you're just pausing here, just noticing the parts of it that feel good in your body. And if there are areas that don't feel so good, it's either trying to soften those or just being like appreciative of that body awareness of knowing what's going on in the physical body. All right, from here, we're going to walk those hands closer to us and take a child's pose with our knees tucked underneath us. So rounding that spine. Again, if your forehead, if it's more of the top of your head that touches the mat here, feel free to grab a block or stack your fists one on top of the other so you have that third eye connection. Really, the purpose of having a little bit of pressure on that third eye is adding some ease or a message to that nervous system to calm down and settle. All right, come on back up to hands and knees. We're going to extend that right leg straight out to the side. Toes are pointing forward. And to start, we're going to just come on down to our elbows. Show you from the side here so it's a little easier. And just like we did with our from tabletop where you're sliding forward and backwards a little bit, I want you to explore how that feels. Leaving that outside pinky edge of the right foot ground down. Just find a little bit of movement and curiosity about things in your body here. But knowing as you've got this elbow and forearm on the mat, moving forward and back, you've got this shoulder movement going. That's less of a load than a plank or a down dog. It's trying to find some good movement in those shoulders. All right, we're gonna stay on that left elbow and plant the left palm on the mat, really at any angle that's comfortable for you. And then take right hand, lift it high. Notice anything going on with the outside pinky edge of that right foot. If it's trying to lift, ground down there. And find a spot where you can breathe freely. And from here, we're going to do that same sliding forward and back. Just on that forearm. Nice and slow, controlled movement. Looking for your full range of motion here. And then if you want, you can add some movement in with that top arm as well, reaching forward and back. Hopefully that left shoulder is feeling good and warm. All right, coming back to both elbows out in front of you. Sit back towards that left heel. So that might mean you can sit all the way back on that heel as if you were in child's pose, or not. But again, keep that right leg extended. Wiggle the toes on your right foot. Notice what that pinky edge of your right foot is doing. And find a couple easier breaths here. Softness in the face and in the belly. And come on back up to hands and knees. All right, we're going to do the same thing on the left side. So extend that left leg out, toes point forward, pinky edge grounds down. Come on down to those elbows. And start to slide forward and back up the length of your mat. Really what we want to be doing here is kind of not just observing our shoulders and finding movement there, but our hips are moving as well. And moving in such a way that we are releasing tension rather than building it. Getting into those major joints in our body that do hold a lot of tension. Finding some freeness there and moving. And let's pause, put all your weight onto that right elbow, palm faces down. Pick that left hand up towards the sky. Again, ground down with that pinky edge of your foot. And we're going to move here again, forward and back. To start, that left arm is just going to pause and stay still. So this doesn't have to be a really big movement in anyone's body, or it can be, but just kind of being curious about things that start to come up in that shoulder. And then adding that left arm movement, some freeness in that shoulder. All right, come on back down to your elbows. Sit all the way back as far as you can towards that right heel. Again, whatever you're doing here, letting yourself find some ease. And one of the first ways we can do that is just being aware of our breath and letting it kind of flow freely in and out. Using that nostril breathing if that's part of your practice. All right, come on back up to hands and knees. Bring that foot in. Let's swing hips side to side. And then we're gonna tuck those toes. Lift hips up into down dog. And down dog doesn't have to have straight legs here. We're just gonna bend it, walk it out. Find some freeness and movement here. Notice if you're holding your breath. And just be aware of that. Trying to add some inhales and exhales. All right, bend your knees. Let's step forward to the top of our mat. Grab opposite elbows. Bend your knees enough that your belly and chest are resting on your thighs. If it feels better to have your hands on the mat while you do that, feel free to do so. Let your head and shoulders fully relax. Let's bring those hands down to the mat. And while we're here, I'm just going to find this sweeping movement of our arms back and forth. So bend your knees as little as you need to here so that your fingers kind of graze the ground. We're just going to kind of bring and sweep those hands and arms back and forth. This can be as small or as big as you want. I say this is like clearing away some of that bad energy. Our forward folds gives us this chance of release. And here we're just kind of sweeping that energy away. All right, let's swing those arms up and stand tall overhead and into Tadasana. All right, let's pause here. Sometimes that can create some energy in our body, so we just want to bring that back into focus. Nice relaxed shoulders. Notice your kneecaps here for a moment and kind of unlock them if they feel locked. Just a micro bend. All right, that same forward fold motion, we're gonna make that a bigger movement. So just be mindful of your back and hips and shoulder joints as we move. We're gonna sweep our arms up overhead and come into this deeper back bend. Then we're gonna bend our knees, let our fingertips graze the earth, bring those arms up behind us. And then we're gonna push feet into the mat, stand tall, come into your back bend, lower, bring those arms full rotation. So this really can be done as slow or as fast as you want. Like you can really get yourself going, kind of winding yourself up. If you're like, oh, I just need some energy right now. Or it can be a nice slow movement if you're like, oh, I'm just enjoying moving slow. I'm gonna do these about 15 more seconds. Again, something to consider as you're moving here is just like getting rid of all that excess of 2020 that doesn't serve us anymore. There's lots of things that come up that really were challenging, causing us to pivot our lives. Just let that go and release it. Clear all your energy space. And we're going to come to a forward fold. Grab opposite elbows. Head hangs heavy. Again, noticing your forward fold here. All right, keep spine rounded. We're slowly going to come back up to stand. All right, close your eyes gently for just a moment. So we have kind of worked out some tension from our shoulders and hips, even our toes and fingers. So we've kind of cleared this pathway of renewal. So we're going to move through a vinyasa. Let's kind of explore how each pose feels. Take some time in each one. So it's definitely a slower vinyasa. But in doing those, it really gives us an opportunity to look at what our mind does and what our body is doing as well. And as you are thinking about those things and getting into each pose, I don't want you thinking about the part of it you can't do or that doesn't feel good. I want you to honor that in your body and be aware of it, but finding what does feel good or modifications or variations to take, whether that's less of a pose or deeper pose, if you know one. All right, we're gonna grab our blocks so that they are handy if they're not towards the top of your mat. All right, take a deep inhale, reach hands out and up overhead. And we're gonna sweep those arms down for our forward fold. Bring those hands way up overhead and back down to the mat. Let's step just our right foot back. And if hands aren't comfortably on the floor here, bring your hands to blocks. Lower down to that right knee so that you're in lunge. I'm going to turn sideways here so it's a little easier maybe to see what I'm doing. All right, so now that left hand is going to stay on the mat and right hand is going to come to our hip. And then we're just going to turn towards the right side. So you can tent fingers on the left hand rather. Again, coming to blocks at any point so that your body doesn't feel stressed here. I want you to feel really good. And if you are finding stress here, are there things that you can do to make this feel better for yourself? Maybe sink into that lunge a little deeper to feel a stretch. And then we're going to take that right hand and bring it all the way out and around and down to the floor. Fingertips are going to sweep the ground and full circle rotation with that shoulder. Notice how the hand is rotating. Notice anything about where you feel this, and we're going around about 5 times. So this is my last circle. When fingertips come down to the ground this time, I'm going to sweep them the opposite direction and take 5 full circles here. And once you're done with those circles, return that hand to your hip. Take a couple breaths here. Really kind of feel what's going on in your hips. Then just bring right hand back to square those hands off around your left foot. Let's straighten that left leg. Hinge forward. Maybe draw toes on that left foot towards you so that you're stretching through the hamstring. And really what we're ultimately doing is giving that hip a little bit of a break. Let's plant the toes on the left foot towards the mat so the front of your shin stretches out. Again, remembering the intent of yoga is really not to mirror anybody or even like this perception of what you think you should be looking like in a pose. I want you really feeling that you're just honoring your body, doing it a good service, and taking the path through your practice that best serves you. All right, come back forward into a lunge. Let's tuck the toes on our right foot and lift that knee up off the ground. All right, swoop hands all the way up, overhead, gaze up. So we're in a high crescent lunge. So alternative is to be doing this one down on your knee. Great variation. But while we're here, we're going to take those circles again, this time moving both arms out and around, up through center. Take 5 circles. And as you move, noticing any sensations in that right side. After your 5th one, we're going to reverse those circles. Really watching our thoughts in our mind. Keeping that breath nice and smooth. And after your 5th one, we're going to bring those hands back down to the mat. Come into that straight left leg, like we just did. Draw toes back towards you. Take a couple breaths here. All right, come back into that low lunge. Lift right knee up off the mat. We're going to move through high crescent and into warrior 2. So inhale, swoop arms up overhead and find warrior 2. Relax those shoulders. Nice strong bend in the front knee. Right, for our movement here, we're just moving into reverse warriors. So right hand comes down to that leg, left hand reaches and stretches. And then come forward into side angle. So forearm comes to that shin, right hand reaches overhead. 4 more times, we're going to move to reverse warrior. And then side angle. Keep that bend in that front knee as much as possible. After this 5th one here, we're going to cartwheel hands down to the mat to low lunge. Drop that right knee, extend left leg, take your fold. Draw those toes back towards you, or if it was feeling better to keep toes on the mat, do that as well. Just pausing for about 5 breaths here. All right, come back to that low lunge. So we're just going to repeat those poses in more of a flow. So keep left hand down. We're going to reach right hand out and up overhead here. Make a full circle with that hand. As we come back forward, tuck toes on that right foot, come up to high crescent lunge. Make those circles with your arms backwards and then forward 1 time. Move to warrior 2. Reverse your warrior. Extended side angle. Come back to warrior 2. Cartwheel hands down to the mat, low lunge. Plant that right knee, extend left leg long. Let's do that 1 more time. Hinge forward. Keep left hand down. Open up, circle with that right hand. Keep moving to high crescent lunge. Circle back with those arms. Circle forward. Warrior two. Reverse. And then extended angle. Back to warrior two. Connect with that gaze. Cartwheel, hands down. Plant right knee, straighten left leg. Back to low lunge. Step forward on your mat. Take a couple of those sweeping motions with your arms. Keep knees bent. If you want to go all the way up here for that full motion release. Just doing about 5 of these. Coming to forward fold. All right, let's do that on our left side. So step left foot back. Make sure those blocks are handy. Mostly I say that for myself. All right, we've got low lunge here. I'm gonna plant left hand down on the floor, or let's see, we've switched sides. So right hand, and then bring left hand to that hip. Open up, turn towards the left side. Just gonna find some breath here, lunge deeper. Maybe getting into that thigh stretch a bit. So knowing kind of where we're going with this, we've got 5 circles backwards and then forwards. So just nice, easy movements. Reach out behind you and forward. Keep those movements nice and steady with the intent of like letting them be freeing in that shoulder rather than creating tension. And after 5 in one direction, we're going to reverse that. Maybe add a gaze, like can you follow your hand with that gaze? Because what happens there is that neck starts to move and find some mobility. All right, come to low lunge, straighten right leg, draw toes back towards you. Again, pausing here, finding some breath. Maybe putting those right toes on the mat to stretch the top of your leg out. All right, come to low lunge. Tuck toes on that back foot. Inhale, swoop up to high crescent. Find some steadiness here. So you might need to widen your stance a little bit. And 5 circles behind you. Again, make sure your jaw is nice and calm here. Those facial muscles are relaxed. If you can have a nice steady breath here. And then reverse, go 5 the other direction. Bring hands down around that front foot, lower down to your left knee, straighten leg. Getting really good hamstring love in here. Checking in with your brain and seeing how you're doing with that intention. Finding ease and fluidity in that movement, or finding any modifications that feel good for you. Back to low lunge. Lift that back knee. Inhale, high crescent. Exhale, warrior two. Reverse your warrior. Come forward to extended side angle. 4 more times. Make each one feel better. Rather than worrying about, oh, my legs are getting tired, make it feel better. Coming back to warrior two. Cartwheel those hands down, lower down to left knee, extend right leg. Finding an easy breath here. All right, let's run through that flow. So come to low lunge, plant left or plant right hand. Inhale, reach that arm behind you, full circle. Bring that hand down, tuck toes on that foot. Inhale, reach up, high crescent lunge. Full circle, those arms behind you. And then forward. Open up to warrior two. Reverse your warrior. Extended side angle. Back to warrior two. Cartwheel, hands down. Lower down to knee. Extend front leg. Plant those toes to stretch deeper through that front leg. All right, one more time. Come to low lunge. Plant right hand. Circle that arm around. Open up. Bring hand down. Lift up off that knee. Inhale, high crescent. Circle arms back. Circle arms forward. Warrior two. Reverse your warrior. Extended side angle. Back to warrior two. Cartwheel, hands down. Lower down to knees, straighten right leg. Deepest forward fold you've had on this side yet. All right, come back to low lunge. Let's step forward. Taking 5 of those, just energy space clearing breaths. So doing them in forward fold or standing. And coming into Tadasana when you're done. All right, take your feet a little bit wider apart so your foundation is nice and solid. Wiggle your toes. Maybe even look at spreading those toes apart any bit on the mat. Creating some length through your legs, but noticing if there's tension there in your knees. Standing up nice and tall, creating length through your vertebrae and letting those shoulders relax. Not just down with those shoulders, we're gonna draw them just slightly, gently back towards each other. So your scapulas kind of almost poke each other. What's it called? The bump or the poke? I don't know what on Facebook, whatever you. Palms are facing forward. All that tension in our face and jaw, everything is released. So we kind of have this really good Tadasana. So I want you to have this sense of your practice here. And really looking at it as this restoration. I got rid of all the old junk from 2020 or anything even before, all those years before. Not just 2020 that's challenging. And while we don't always have to be new in the new year, it's okay to look for those wins and start to leave things behind us that no longer serve. So while we learn from things and take those lessons with us, the burdens that were brought with them are gone. You've done that. You've done the work. I'm going to step our feet together. Take a deep inhale, nice renewing breath deep into your belly. Nice exhale, forward fold. Inhale that freshness, that newness again into your body. And exhale, forward fold. Make our way down to hands and knees. Sit back on your heels for a moment with this child's pose with knees underneath you. Bring forehead down. Considering this like this bow, honoring our past. And in that honoring, we leave it behind. Take lessons forward. As you're ready, I want you to make your way just onto your back, most gentle, loving way that you have in you this morning. Just taking up some space on your mat or beyond your mat. Feeling settled. That entire back body melting and fully supported by the earth. And not just feeling supported by the earth, but by all those around you. And recognizing and being grateful for those who do support you. Just like I'm so grateful for each of you. Finding the joy in that. And that front body is carefree, and it floats through the air. It's kind of childlike, where you look at things with new eyes, new vision. Finding joy in what we can do, what we have done, what we've overcome. And feeling the strength in that. And just settling in, letting thoughts go. Breath is natural, and any remaining tension in your body finds release now. And then as you're ready, I invite you to come on up, making your way to a seated spot on your mat. And just making yourself nice and comfortable. Maybe closing your eyes. All right, I want you to bring hands to heart here for a moment. Press thumbs into your sternum. So I have a challenge for each of you. And sometimes we're taking this shift in our thinking and in our minds with us into 2021. And if you're one that writes down goals or resolutions, feel free to do so, but consider adding at least one drishti point that if you need help finding something, please hit me up. And also, there's a thing out there called a nectar list. And I don't know if you've ever heard of a nectar list, but it's a form of a gratitude journal. And so when you're creating resolutions, when you're creating those drishtis for the new year, I want you to create that nectar list as well and come up with equally number of nectar lists. So things of gratitude that you were successful at this year. Feeling really good about those things. So those things are already done and you can take pride in that. Carry that gratitude and pride and all of that with you to find some balance with those goals for 2021. So taking that with you when you leave your mat today. So take a deep inhale, reach hands out and up overhead. Hands down, back to your heart, head bows. Yes, thank you so much for all the love and joy you've brought to me this year. And I send all that love and joy back out to you. Namaste.